I kind of think that I already did more than enough coverage about the OnePlus 7 Pro, but I still have to kind of put it out, the final review, so pretty much part 2 of my very detailed review. But just so you know, this will be a very chilled out video because I'm recording this on a Sunday, and since I've already covered pretty much and this is kind of more of a summary, I think that works out better because this way I can focus on what I want to say instead of kind of showing everything in the proper way or making it nice to look at. So that's just not gonna happen, and I'm gonna actually make this pretty casual, but in some way more of a daily life experience now that I have my OnePlus 7 Pro here, my personal one, my daily driver. I got it a few days ago and I want to pretty much summarize my whole experience. But before I'm going to actually do that and cover also all the specific categories, I want to give you the final rating now already, but actually also explain why the rating looks like it looks. Now, first of all, let's start with my typical rating and with the build quality. I'm gonna give it 5 stars here just because I simply don't see anything to fault. It feels high quality, it feels dense. Yes, it feels heavy, but we'll get to that in the design part. But the button and everything else feels executed the way you would expect it. So 5 stars, no other way here. But the design, 4.5. For a few subjective things, but I mean, it's subjective, but I guess a lot of people will agree with me just because it is just the biggest complaint about this phone in general, which is the size, the weight, and the curved display. If all of those 3 things would have been out of the way, I guess this would have been an easy 5-star phone, and for some it still is. For me, I mean, I'm not the biggest fan of the size. I'm not the biggest fan of the weight, but I got used to it, and I'm willing to get into those sacrifices to make those compromises to get this kind of experience. So I will knock it down a little bit, but make of that what you want. With the fingerprint reader, I have to say though, I will actually give it 5 stars. Okay, if you have a little bit more greasy hands at times, but I mean really like grease, not just finger sweat or so, or pretty heavy wet hands, it's maybe not working that well. But in my normal experience, especially this week when I worked a lot with oil and had oily hands, it actually worked pretty good. So it works actually better now than it did with the previous OnePlus that I had. Maybe they improved something with the updates, or I just set up my finger a little bit different, a little bit, maybe a bit better, but it works so fast. And the position, and since the fingerprint reader is now also a little bit bigger, I can't fault it for anything because whenever I hold up this and just blindly put it, I unlocked it just right again. So works great, and now it actually turns on a little bit better. This was a little bit of an issue in the past, in the previous, but now I'm fully satisfied. Display, one of the few phones that gets 5 gold star, but I think no one will really kinda say no, besides maybe the curved display. If you don't like the kinda, what's it called, the reflections and so on, because the distortion is there, but if you look at it straight up, I mean, the main reason why I'm giving it 5 gold stars is, first of all, it's a high quality display. It's bright enough in my opinion. It is very nice and clear with the whites. The calibration is great. I personally do have to say that I like the calibration, kinda a little bit more of a vibrant, more vivid look on the OnePlus 5T, even more so. But it is more natural this time, and it just looks amazing. And we have a lot of customization options and all these kind of things. But then, for me, actually more important than just the high resolution of WQHD is the 90 Hz display. I mean, at this point, at this size, I'm not quite sure how good 1080p would have been, especially since I now also have, for example, the ZTX and 10 here and the Redmi K20. I see definitely that if you go down from WQHD to Full HD, yeah, it just doesn't look as crisp anymore. But those 90 Hz make everything just feel way more smoother. And this is just the thing. You can get sharp displays, but at this point in time, besides going for 90 Hz or for 120 Hz, there is no other solution to get more performance or a feel for it to get a better experience, because 60 Hz by now is the limiting factor. So super happy with the display. Speakers, not quite. I'm gonna give those 4.5 stars just because of the fact that I think the highs are a little bit fatiguing. They feel sometimes a little bit harsh. There is also some distortion at the very highest end. I mean, generally it's loud enough, but as I said already previously, and it didn't really change much since I had it the first time, but I still think that I have to kinda fiddle around with the volume the whole time because some content is a little bit quieter than the other and so on. And it's more obvious on this phone than on any other one that I've noticed so far. For example, the ZTX and 10 has also stereo speakers, similar sounding ones, but actually a little bit better quality. but those seem more consistent in terms of volume. So that's slightly the thing. And the sound is more on the higher end. I think mids are lacking a little bit. Something that gives the sound a little bit more depth, a little bit of a warmer, richer feel. But still, stereo speakers, loud enough, good quality, all okay here. Next thing, well, headphone jack. No rating. No headphone jack, no dongle. Not gonna rate it. Performance also here 5 gold stars. I mean, it's pretty easy to say why. Like I said already beforehand, 90 Hz is the factor. Snapdragon 855 UFS 3.0 storage makes maybe a little bit of a difference because apps seem to load a little bit quicker. But generally, it just feels crazy fluid, crazy responsive, consistently. I mean, I don't know how to make it any better. And it is therefore also getting the gold star rating because nothing on the market right now gets this level and with a margin. So yeah. Battery life. I've seen complaints. I've seen people being happy. I'm definitely on the happy side. Happy enough for all instances, even with heavier use. Because on a mix, I still get over a normal day like easy 6 hours. I mean, I do the normal stuff like YouTube, social media, emails, browsing the web and all these kind of things. So not a crazy heavy user. And I mean, on mobile data, I actually like that the standby drain is actually quite moderate and it's good on Wi-Fi as well. Normal use, and if you go, for example, over Wi-Fi, I can reach like 10 hours. So, and obviously, if that's not enough in certain instances and you need more, just go down to 60 Hz. Changing resolution from Quad HD to Full HD won't really make that much of a difference. You can maybe get like 10% more out of that. But if you want to save battery life, go for 60 Hz. But for me, that's the biggest appeal for the performance. It makes this stand out so much. But battery life, I'm fine, and it charges fast enough. Not crazy fast anymore. We have faster ones out there by now, but all good. Now, software, pretty easy. 5 stars. Not 5 gold stars, but if I just check the software here, what I like especially is the fact that we get tons of great convenient options. We have a nice UI design. I like the minimalistic approach, but still being very slick. We have no always on display, but I actually prefer this way because it doesn't suck up so much battery, and whenever I lift it up, it's fine. I mean, the whole horizon light is something odd because it appears so quickly that you're definitely gonna miss it. I don't know why it doesn't stick and keeps on glowing, like for example an LED would. So that's an odd decision. It should at least blink a few times more or something like that. So I personally still like it though, because whenever I pick it up, I know if there's something going on, and I don't really need an always on display. But like other ones, I think they should have at least included the option. I wouldn't use it since I usually don't use it on other phones. But if they would have given me this option and then a normal always on display, I think everyone would have been satisfied. But what I also have to say, what I actually missed the most on other phones coming from a OnePlus, long-time OnePlus 5T user, are the off-screen gestures. I use that so much whenever I listen to media at home for my video playback. I also use it to turn on the flashlight, to activate the camera and so on. And this is so handy, and still not every phone has that. A few have it by now, but here it works so seamlessly, and everything else, we get good update support, we get improvements and so on. So yeah, okay, about the camera. I'm gonna show you a few samples just to get it quickly out of the way. But generally, I still have to say that selfies look quite good, but there's nothing to brag about. I still think they look slightly soft. Skin colors look okay, but the whole color science, especially on the main camera, feels a little bit off. Selfie video is kind of disappointing in my opinion, because it looks like it's using way too much contrast. Whenever I look at my beard, it looks just too much. The exposure is flaky, like I already also said. It's not really sharp, and the EIS is actually okay, but therefore has an extreme amount of crop and this kind of, if you bounce, if you just hit the floor, this kind of odd motion blur. But I will give it like 4.5 stars. I mean 4 stars or 4.5. I don't really matter. What did I give it? Let's check my rating here. Because for the software I gave 5 on the front camera, 4.5 for front video. I will give it actually 4.5 stars. But the main reason therefore is the stabilization. Because I've noticed when I used other phones without that stabilization but a similar quality, that just is the one thing that holds it a little bit above the rest. Night mode. Okay. Let's show you this picture. This is it, which one is this? Let me check. Yeah, this is the normal one, taken with the OnePlus 5, and this is already using obviously the 9.57 update. Normal picture, and look what it does. No, this is the normal one, and this is the brighter one. So I don't know. Okay, so here, this is the normal one. Sorry, I got it wrong. You can read the Adidas, but if you go, for example, on the night mode one, everything looks bright or nice, but you can't even read the Adidas as well anymore. So let's actually get this a little bit closer. Here, so the actual sharpness got worse in some way, I'd say. So it looks odd, and it looks to try to do something it's not really supposed to do. So yeah, I mean, okay, but if I, for example, look on Gcam, this is with the knob, it looks very natural. You can read the Adidas, you have a lot more texture here in the shoe, because if you see, for example, here, there is pretty much no texture going on, where we have a lot of texture going on here. So let's actually compare the two ones. So on the left, we have the OnePlus 7 Pro with the normal cam, and the right one is Gcam. And now let's get closer, and you can see of how much more details, especially here, and also here, for example, there are on the Gcam. And especially if you check the night mode now. Let's check the night mode from the OnePlus and the one from Gcam. You can still clearly read the Adidas. You can still see this. It looks way more natural. Here, for example, this is very, very soft, but this is fine. And this is a coherent thing. This persists pretty much the whole time throughout. And this is what happens a lot of times. I mean, I also have a few other pictures that, for example, show that it's not that bad. Let me actually get into this. So let's actually check a few more pics. I have no problem with that. We have the time. So generally the pictures are nice. For example, here it looks good. The zoom is fine. I still like that. And generally all these kind of things. And I think they got the colors a little bit more right, because I didn't get any dull pictures anymore. I let it on auto mode all the time, and I'm actually fully pleased by now. Especially also the wide angle camera is doing a better job. It's not quite as bad as it was before, but I think maybe they didn't just use the perfect one, the solution with the autofocus and so on. But generally, if you look at those, okay, here is something odd going on. Maybe I used a different odd file, but I used the profile or config file for Gcam, but this is the normal cam, and this is what Gcam does. And I'm not quite sure if you can actually see this, because there is some odd pattern going on. I don't see that on the phone, I only see it on my app, so I'm not quite sure if something weird is going on, but generally quality is fine. But let me actually get into something else, because I did some other pictures, my typical run, and here you can once again see that, I mean, this is what I meant. Here and here, with the night mode, it doesn't really get better, it gets brighter, but as you can see, it actually gets still worse in my opinion. So I'm still not a fan of this night mode. Tell me whatever you want. It works though better a little bit in kind of outdoor situations. So whenever you're close up, I wouldn't use the night mode, but outside it works better. For example, here, pictures got nicer. It's not the crazy sharpest cam. It's a little bit more kind of soft, but on a natural way. So they don't use any sort of over sharpening. But even with HDR, I think it got right a little bit better. This is too heavy. But generally, it got better. Sometimes the autofocus doesn't quite want to get it. Let's quickly go. HDR, yeah, got better. But it's just not yet quite a flagship level. Let me go into the low light pictures. Selfies look good. The normal selfies one, especially with the portrait mode, look good. I'm fine with that, but it works better. Now, where are they? Where are they? Low light. Like I said, the wide angle got better. And generally the pictures now are fully satisfying. But it's still not quite what I would expect from a phone of this price level. Where are they? Where are they? They should finally appear. White, everyone double now. Something weird is going on. Okay, here they are, sorry. So this is normal, and this with the night mode here, this got better. Especially if you look at the shadows here. You don't see anything here. Let me actually get this closer. We don't see any sort of details in the shadows, but we do have with the night mode. As you can see, so that's something that I will give it. Also here, for example, not many details in the darkness, it gets better. So in maybe more realistic scenarios, I give it a notch to the cam. But whenever I did it in more, yeah, close-up scenarios, it didn't get better. Here, for example, not so much. Here as well. Yeah, so that's pretty much what I wanted to get into. Whoop. So that's that. Let me quickly get into the rest. So the main cam is still the best part. Actually, I have to say colors improved. It's not dull anymore, so that's fine. And it is a pretty good, but just almost flagship level camera for me. The wide angle cam got better. It sometimes still doesn't get it quite right, but it's totally usable by now, especially on social media and on a monitor. You will see those quick, but not on a tablet or so. And the zoom camera is still pretty solid. Color science in video is extremely weird. I'm not even gonna show you those, or maybe I will put it at the end. I still have to decide because those look just way too much. Colors kinda are so glowingly green, especially in the woods, and yeah, I think they overdid it here, especially with those kind of things. The look looks a little bit odd, almost like in a cartoon sometimes. The EIS, it seems weaker than before for some reason, but therefore you see some more shaking, and yeah, I liked it a lot more, especially the more realistic, kind of better EIS on the Zenfone. But what I'm gonna say is that if you have a gimbal or super steady hands, I would actually tell you to just use 4K 60. That one, in my opinion, looks almost smoother and just way more refined and so on. And obviously, let's talk about that. Gcam will improve things. I mean, I did the testing and it definitely has potential. Things look a little bit more detailed. The camera gets a little bit more laggy, especially if you use the HDR plus mode, the most extreme one, because then it just takes like 7 pictures by default, stacks them up, and therefore pictures look better, but it just doesn't feel quite as smooth. But you could use that's the normal HDR plus mode, and that one pretty much has no delay and is close to the best one on the HDR. I think it's plus plus. So let me just read what I said here in my notes. Overall, even though updates improved it, it's not enough to change my initial rating. Still no flagship in no category. Best part is the main cam. Video generally pretty good, but bad color science kinda ruined the experience. I end up using it mostly with the main cam, at times the wide or zoom. No big interest in using it for video, neither for the front or back, because 4K 60 actually stands out here the most. But front, well, disappointing for the level it competes in, especially the video I found just unsatisfying at this price point. Low light, solid, but night mode is still nothing you really need in some situations. Like I said, it works fine, and normal mode is actually already quite good. Main camera, satisfying enough for the level, and the video a little bit disappointing if we exclude the 4K 60. So final camera rating. I actually wrote it down. I can't even remember when, but it says it looks like it came closer, but if you actually look closer, they just are as far away from the top as they were before. The depth gap didn't close at all. Yeah, makes sense. Okay, so what else? Well, let's say what I've read, what I wrote down would have been a total hit if only. Now, here I found a few things that I think if they would have generally changed those, and that's not a subjective thing, I think this would have been the phone of the year. If it would have been smaller and lighter. That's a general issue of a lot of people, not for everyone though, obviously. If it had a flat display, I think we can all agree that we would enjoy it more. I don't mind it, but I would enjoy it maybe more if it would be flat, but they're not at this size. So if they already went that size, I think curved is okay, because otherwise it would have been just way too wide. And then if it actually would have had a real flagship camera, which it doesn't have. Now, the way it is, what makes me worth getting it over others though, is the 90 and or Quad HD display in general. That's the main part actually for me, because I watch a lot of YouTube these days and I like to watch content on a sharp and high refresh rate display. So that's the one big part. So besides of that, there's actually not that much actually holding me onto this phone, but this is, with the rest being good enough, the one thing. Then obviously the performance, maybe the software for a lot of people, and the otherwise solid but overall not quite total package. Okay, you should look elsewhere though if you want something easier to handle. Just something more compact, or let's say normal sized, if you want wireless charging, if you want an official IP rating, because that's still missing. Not that I care about that, but a lot of people think that's what makes a real flagship a flagship. Yeah, and flagship level camera. And obviously if you want to pay less, so obviously I have the option with the OnePlus 7 that I will still get and review, but the way I see, those two don't really compete. The OnePlus 7 is way bigger, it has a more flexible camera, but the main camera is the same thing. We get the display. The display is the one thing. If, for example, the OnePlus 7 would have had a 1080p 90Hz display, then I actually think I would have went for the OnePlus 7, because it's a smaller one, should even have better battery life and all these kind of things. But yeah, without that, nah. Okay. So, any final words that I haven't kinda noted down? General experience, having it again now, after I think I had it not for about 2 weeks. I personally still enjoy it a lot. Now that I got the mirror black, it's way more grippy, so I can also use it without a case. When I'm going maybe on a trip or on an event or something, I will still use it, a case, just to have it a little bit more protected. But otherwise, I will use it like that. This one thing that I've noticed is when usually I type more at this angle. Now I get a little bit higher, just so to kind of prevent it being a little bit top heavy, which it after all is with this weight. But I like the feel still. Using it on a daily basis is just something. Whenever I switch from this phone to anything else, like now the ZTX and the Redmi, whatever else, this is a noticeable kind of diminishing factor when I go to these, because this experience with this 90 Hertz display, with the performance, the sound, and the display quality, it's just something that is at the moment unmatched. I mean, obviously it's not super flawless. There are some things like, for some people the battery life might be not good enough. For some people it's just too big. For some people the camera isn't good enough. But what's important for me is so a good speaker system, so a good stereo speaker system, even though not the best one, an amazing display with great performance and way more than enough battery life with that software experience that actually makes a difference in daily use with all those small little convenient things, is what made me buy it. Not quite sure what else to say, because am I fully pleased? No, because of the size. But besides that, especially someone who wants a bigger phone and has no issue with that, yes. If this would have been as is, just about 0.3, 0.4 inches smaller, so actually, let's say pretty similar to something like the Nexon, which feels very similar, just thinner. The Nexon 10 is a thinner version. Also has a 4000 mAh battery, and you can see it is noticeably smaller after all. It's about just as tall, but thinner and a little bit more narrow. So if they would have maybe just taken over this design, then I would, I think, be absolutely fully satisfied. But this, at the moment, is the only package that I see, since I have tested pretty much all of them by now, that I'm going for. I just don't get this experience on any other phone on that level. Some have different better aspects. For example, let's say the next closest thing for me that was an option for a long while was the Samsung Galaxy S10e. Smaller, still amazing display, better speaker system, battery life was the problem. Performance wasn't quite as good, but it was still good. The software I really liked, and the camera. So that I would have gotten if I would have been really into it, especially front video, the main video, the photos, and everything else, because I liked that. It's, in my opinion, still the best overall camera on the Android sector. It was small and easier to use, but it didn't have the 90 Hertz. It didn't have the battery life that was satisfying enough for me. And these kind of things were enough to go for the complete opposite of what I actually wanted. I wanted a small compact phone that is great, but then I went for this. So I still think for a lot of people, something like an S10 Plus, maybe the Note once it's out, or the S10e is the better overall rounded package. Or maybe some other phones that I'm not even considering right now. But I can only judge for me, and I can only tell you my personal preference, that the problem is I just had to bite the bullet with the size. Otherwise, fully happy. Anything else to say? Yeah, I'm not really sure, because I'm already repeating myself for a long enough time. So yeah, I'll just end this video here, and goodbye. Okay, front-facing video test of the OnePlus 7 Pro. Once again holding with the selfie stick, where of course I kind of have to due to the brutal crop, and I hope really at least the stabilization works quite good in low light. It gets a little bit more actually grainy than soft, which is something that I personally prefer. Sound quality of the mic, I feel so far, seems good. I'm trying to keep it steady, but this way we also see how good stabilization works. Colors look good if you get the wrong, as you can see here, exposure. If you get into odd lighting, it changes quite quickly and it doesn't really adjust for it. But personally, quality, not as happy as I would expect from a flagship like this. So in case you maybe want to vlog with this phone, yeah. The color science looks a little bit off. but from this distance maybe it might actually work. Okay, so this is actually the OnePlus 7 Pro using open camera, which has less of a crop, but I'm still using the selfie stick. The reason why I'm using this is because it seems to be so far one of the few camera apps that also supports an external microphone, which is something that I would like to use for vlogging. It also allows for a higher bitrate, so right now I'm using 80 Mbits. It seems quite clean, but since there is not that much of a crop, I also think there is not that much stabilization going on. So it might be a little bit more shaky. Let's see if the weird color still gets up like on the original one. So yes, doesn't seem quite as obvious, but it's still kind of there. Maybe sharpness looks a little bit cleaner or better due to the higher bitrate. Sound quality I don't think should be different, but at least here you could use the different microphone. And then from this distance with the selfie stick just a little bit outside, if it's not shaking too much, this would be actually maybe a decent solution. Actually maybe decent. Okay. 4K 60. .4K 30. .1080p with a selfie stick and, well, the stock camera app to see how it reduces changing. I have to get the stick out quite a lot to get a good distance because of the heavy crop, and it seems to shake heavily. I hope it does not look like that in reality, because this looks bad. Okay, so this is 1080p, but this time with open camera with an 80 Mbit bitrate. Less crop, therefore the stick is actually the same distance, but it feels farther away. But stabilization should be even weaker, which already didn't seem that great on the stock app. But I like the distance here with how far the stick is out. This would work, right? So, hey, yo, blah, 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 blah. I'm making a vlog, I'm important. Look at me, I'm a social influencer. How long am I recording?